Participating in tonight's discussion are 5 young Europeans. I'd like to introduce each of them to you now. First is Gerhard Kasper from Germany. Gerhard's the baby of the group. He was 16 years old. Sorry, Gerhard. He was 16 years old on December 25th of last year. Gerhard's a leader in his school. He's a member of the German Evangelical Youth and is trying to decide now whether his future should be in politics or perhaps whether he should join the ministry. From Switzerland, Philippe de Vargas. He was born, however, in Peking, China, where his father was a missionary and teacher. He's lived in Switzerland since he was 3 years old. He's 9 years old. Sorry, Philip. Thank you for correcting me. He's a phenomenon in the sense that here is a Swiss boy who had to come to the United States to learn how to ice skate. True, Philip?
True.
Next is Maria Pia Guasti from Italy. Maria wrote on her autobiography at the time she was chosen that she wanted to be a teacher. But when I said that the other day, she corrected me because she says since she's been here, she's discovered that there are so many interesting things to do in the world that she can't really decide what she's going to do. One thing she's had to do here, though, has been to try to persuade people that even though she has blue eyes and blonde hair, she is Italian. Maria says that everybody expects her to be dark curly-haired and brown-eyed, that actually she often has much more in common with American girls than she has with Italian girls who come from the south of Italy. From France, we have Eric Lafont, who comes from a publishing family. Eric's studying philosophy. He is 16 years old, will be 17 in May, and wants to be a psychiatrist. From Belgium, Jean-Pierre Juquen, also 17. If you should note an American accent when Jean-Pierre speaks English, it's because he learned his English at an American army camp where he was living while his mother was a translator. Jean-Pierre says that one thing he's learned in America is to drink milk. Before he came here, he only drank it when he was sick. However, let's get on with our subject. Has Europe a future? What do you say, Eric?
No, Europe has no future. United States of Europe will never exist. It's too late. We don't have time.
What do you say?
Well, I think if all Europeans think like you, we're never going to have a future. We must believe in a future, Eric, otherwise we'll never have one.
But how can we believe in something that doesn't exist and that will not exist?
Oh, I think Europe does have a future. But it seems sometimes that we need a Russian aggression to recognize that the Europeans have to get together.
Well, now we've got 3 sharply contrasting points of view. You say Europe has no future. You say Europe has. You say, yes, maybe, but we may have to have a war with Russia first or an aggression from Russia. What do you say?
Well, I think that if the people in Europe understand that it's a matter of life and death for our continent, they'll be able to make the sacrifices which are necessary. It will not be easy, but I think it's possible.
What do you say, Jean-Pierre?
Well, I think I did agree completely with Gerhard. I think that we don't need a Russian aggression to unite Europe. We must unite Europe before to prevent any Russian aggression. That's my point of view.
Unite Europe to prevent a Russian
yes.
aggression.
But let us deal with reality. What are you going to do with Germany? You see, 1945, after the Second World War, all the people said there never must be a German soldier again. The German soldier is the greatest danger of the world peace. We could read it in the newspapers. We heard it on wireless. And every foreigner coming to Germany told us this one thing. And today, we are told we must have German soldiers because we cannot have world peace without German soldiers.
I can answer to that. 9 years ago, people didn't realize that the main danger of the world was communism and Russia. Now we do. And Germany is too powerful and has too many men, and we need Germany to defend ourselves.
Well, Gerhard, I'd like to ask you a question. I have had the opportunity to go to Germany myself. And there I've asked many people 2 questions. First question, what do you think of Hitler? They all answered, oh, a horrible man. I agreed. Then I asked, why don't you like Hitler? And the answer was 90 times on 100, because he lost the war. Now, excuse me, I don't know. Perhaps that I was asking those questions to people who are not representative of the ideas of their country. But if it is the situation, how can we possibly give arms to those people? Because communism, I do not think that communism is going to exist forever. At least I hope not.
Well, let's give Gerhard a chance to answer.
I think the people with whom you spoke are the worst Germans. Because Hitler wasn't bad because he lost the war or because he started an attack against Russia and so he fought against two sides, against two fronts. I think he was bad because he had this crazy idea that there's only one race in the world which can rule the world, the German race. And by having this opinion, he killed 6 million Jewish people. He killed many Germans too. We must never forget this fact. But you see, I think these are the worst Germans. You see, we have done often something wrong in our history. But I think we never had to learn in such a hard way than in the Second World War.
Well, is that enough? Because there is a problem in Germany. I mean, the people in Germany, I think when you compare French people and German people, you can see that the French people, well, they work to live. And the Germans, they live to work. Well, yes. You know, I have seen many Germans, and that was the general impression. The problem of Germany is that it produces too much. It has too many children. It needs markets, it needs natural products, it needs to expand. And that problem, how has it been solved? Because if the people in Germany do not have a new way of considering life, they're going to solve it as the same way they've been solving it for the last 1,000 years. It is by war.
Well, what's that new way going to be? Have you got any solutions?
For what?
What's that new way going to be? What is the new route for Germany, would you say? And then we'll hear from some of the others.
I don't know. It seems to me that if we could give Germany more opportunities for exportation, for immigration, if we would cooperate with Germany, if we would take Germany in a united Europe, then there would be a solution. But I think that if we don't use Germany with us, Germany will be against us.
What do you say on this, Eric? Do you think we should arm Germany?
I think we should. I think it's our lives that we are protecting. But French people have a feeling against Germany. I must say, because that's very important, nobody in America knows that. There's 50% in France that want to rearm Germany, and the other 50% that don't want. But among those 50% that don't want, there's a very strong feeling. People don't forget, don't forgive. But it's hard to forgive.
Yes.
Wait a
Yes,
minute, Jean-Pierre.
We have a different point of view in Belgium, I think. I think we suffered as much as you did during the war, and however people try to forget it. I mean, if we lived in the past, we would have prejudices against all European countries, against France, against Italy, against Spain, against Germany. But we try to forget and work with them. We trade with them, we go in Germany, they come in Germany. And concerning European Community of Defense or United States of Europe, I'm sorry, 83% about the people are for.
Is that a public opinion poll that was taken?
It was a test last year.
And you say 83% of the Belgians are for it.
And 10% are against, and the other don't know what to do, half and half.
Have there been polls like that in any of your countries? Do you know? How about Italy? Do you know, Maria?
Well, I don't know about polls on this subject, but I think that what Jean-Pierre said was very true. We really need to give up some of our prejudice if we want to get along together. And as Philip said, it's a matter of life or death for Europe. It's something we must very hard to try to prepare those Federation of Europe and try to give the idea to the people, to the workmen,
Now,
to
it's
make it
awfully-
a common idea.
Yes, it's awfully easy to say, give up our prejudices, but let's talk a little bit about what some of those prejudices are. And since you've raised the point, what would you be willing to give up, Maria, for European Federation?
Well, for example, Trieste. No Italian would give up Trieste, but I'm sure if to give up Trieste would mean to another world war, which would be impossible, or really to not be able to form a Europe, a community of Europe, I think we would be ready to give up Trieste. To make Trieste international.
Yeah,
As it has
Europeanized.
been Europeanized,
How
yes.
about you, Philip? What would you give up as a Swiss?
Well, I myself would probably be willing to give up our neutrality if it was really useful for that cause, and if we did not have any way of helping the world better through our neutrality, which I think is actually the case. But I don't know if many Swiss would be willing to.
Well, if many Swiss would be, wouldn't you be taking more of a part in the EDC now?
Well, we think that we have something more to do through peaceful means as a mediator than in joining any international organization, political organization. Because a mediator can be accepted only if it is impartial. And I don't think that we would be any more impartial if we were part of an international political organization.
In other words, you'd like to keep the neutrality you have now, but eventually you'd be willing to give it up. But we were talking about things you'd give up now. What would you give up now, Gerhard? Would you, look, this might be a too tough question to ask, but would you be willing to give up for now the unification of Germany in order to get a united Western Europe?
I think now, the immediate possibility, I would give it up. But because I know that the EDC or a European community is the only way to unify Germany. But you see, there are two opinions in Germany. The one opinion is the opinion of Dr. Adenauer, the federal chancellor, who says we must have the EDC because Russia will never discuss about this problem with us if she isn't forced to discuss. And many Germans agree with this. But the other opinion is the opinion of really many people and of the Social Democratic Party, which is the representative of the laborers. And they say we must have first the unification because Russia will never discuss about the subject if the EDC exists. You see?
Oh, you belong to the first school. I'm sorry, Jean-Pierre, what do you want to say?
No, that's all right.
Well, what would you give up as a Belgian?
Well, many American people asked me, you have a pretty good standard of living in Belgium. If the United States of Europe would be established, would you be willing to give up this standard of living? And I think that not many people would be willing to do that. And I can give you an example. In 1948, I guess 1948, we got into Benelux.
Benelux, the union of Belgium, Holland, and Luxembourg.
Yeah. Holland, it's a economical union. And according to Benelux, we were supposed to enjoy free trade, no custom duties, free competition, and so on, common market, and so on. But what happened, in fact, in Belgium, we get pretty good wages. Everybody has pretty good wages, but if the wages are good, the products are very expensive. In Holland is a country, so Holland can't buy anything from Belgium. And when our tourists or our businessmen or anybody goes in Holland, they buy everything and they come back in Belgium. They spend quite a lot of money over there. But when they come in Belgium, they come with their bicycles, they bring their sandwiches, and when they buy a Coke, you're pretty lucky.
Well, would you cite Benelux then as an example of the fact that no tariff barriers and customs union will not work in Europe?
It might work, but I think we need a common standard of wages and prices.
But
money and laws and so on.
And is the European community of coal and steel, isn't this a way towards this? And I think it is working, as we know.
It is a wonderful step towards...
I think more important than the economical question here, is that here France and Germany have to go together, and that they get very strong relations, economic relations. And so we can't go back. And I think it is very more important than the economical question, the political question here. There is a political question in the European community.
I don't agree with you. I think the economical question is much more important. By raising the standard of living of the people, you will show them that the European idea is good, because it can be good for them. People want more money and want higher standard of living. They don't mind ideas so much. And
I think that's a very good point, that we would have more opportunities for the United States of Europe if we give something to the people, just to the average people, if they get something out of it. And if they have something, not only the idealistic question, but also that they get money or that they have something out of it.
But can you get common customs union, common no trade barriers? Can you get economic unity without political unity? After all, the coal steel pool has, in effect, almost a constitution, doesn't it?
Yes, it has.
Well, Eric, I think that you cannot separate the economic point of view and the political point of view. People must have an economic interest together. But if they don't have some idea which will be by which they can govern themselves, a political union, they will not be able to stand together long together. Because if there is any economic difficulty, then everything will break down. We need to have a common idea. We need also an economic union, but we need both, I think.
People don't live with ideas, they live with food.
They don't live only with food, they live also with ideas.
No,
they are necessary.
I don't agree with that.
But Eric, you say that they live with food, but in Belgium we live most often with coal. And people began...
with coal,
with coal
in Belgium, yes.
Well, people began to realize that it was necessary to have a common markets, common policy, and so on, since the European pool of coal and steel has been established, because we can sell more easily. And what we can't get in Belgium, we can get in Germany, or what Germany can't get in Germany, you can get in Belgium.
Well, by food, I don't only mean the things you eat. I mean all economical
yeah, but you
things
get
you
food
buy.
by the money you earn, and we earn our money with coal and steel and things like that.
Okay.
I think that politically those ideas already exist. What is important now is how to extend them to the young people, to the students, and how also to extend it to the workers, to the people who must vote for this.
Well, maybe you could shed some light on the subject by telling us what is going on in your experience in Europe now that is making you feel more European and perhaps less conscious of your nationalism. Anything?
Nothing.
Yes.
I think.
Well, there's some disagreement. Now, let's go one at a time. You started, Maria.
Well,
What about
for
Italy?
example, I know that there exists among university students some sort of federation which brings the students up to Strasbourg from time to time, and they go there and watch what the assembly does, and then they come back and they speak with the other students, and they just tell them how well they got along with the other students from all over Europe. And they do this once a year, and it is something which is quite popular in Italy.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people do it.
But that's too small.
Wait a minute. Give Jean-Pierre a chance.
I agree with you, but the trouble is that when they send students, for instance, in Belgium, they sent two students last year. And you must send
Ridiculous.
everybody.
Well, you can't send
You
everybody.
cannot
No,
transfer
you must begin. But you must begin once. I
At
think
least
that.
one student in each
Well,
school.
but that's
Each
impossible.
country. No, it's
So you think you'd better do nothing at all than do a little? I think there must be a beginning to everything. Naturally, the ideal thing would be to send everybody to another country so that everybody could see with his own eyes what is really going on. I think that if all our friends would have the wonderful opportunity we have now, they'd have quite different ideas on America. It would be the same thing in Europe. But we must begin. I think that it is good to begin with the students who will probably be later
I
on the
agree with you,
leaders
but
of the
we should
country.
try to bring more students.
Now, let's hear from Gerhard.
No, I agree with Philip. I have been in France, and I had one experience, and that was very important for me, that we had an accident with our car, and the car had to be repaired. And so we met an engineer, and he, after a short time, he recognized that we are Germans. And then he told us that in the time of the Second World War, in an underground movement, he fought against Germany, against the German army. And so when the German army has been defeated in France, he got German prisoners of war. They had to work for him. And now, after the war, they are exchanging gifts for Christmas, and they are writing letters and so on. And when I came back to my school, and I had an assembly, and I told this impressed the students much more than my reports about the wonderful cathedrals in France and so on. And they started to think about it.
Yes, still a drop in the bucket, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Eric, tell us about France. Is anything being done in your own school in France, for example, to make you feel more European and less French?
Nothing is done and nothing will ever be done. That's against the principle of our school. We go to school to receive an education, and we mustn't receive 1 point. For instance, in America, since you are 3, you are told that everything in communism is bad. Well, that's against our principle of everybody having a possibility to choose himself. And I don't think anything will be ever done.
But you see, we don't need propaganda for Europe. We simply need the facts. The facts that we have so much in common. That is not propaganda. That is simply stating what is.
Well, people will recognize that they have something in common, and yet that won't... they will recognize they have something in common with German, but will still fear
But
German.
you said yourself that 50% of the people in France were for a union with Germany. So there is still, I mean, you cannot say that everybody has the same ideas as you have on that subject.
But I don't have any prejudice against Germany at all. I'm for a European Union.
You just don't think it will ever come
I don't
about?
think it will ever come.
Eric, we skipped you a moment ago, excuse me for interrupting, when we were talking about what you would be willing to give up for a European Union. How about your French language?
Oh, never.
Well,
That's the thing that we can't give. I don't think even we need only one language.
Well,
in
how
Europe.
about that? Is it necessary to have a common language to have a European
But
Union?
I think it's not quite necessary. Of course, in most of the schools, they learn English, they learn German, they learn French, and so on. But let's take the example of Belgium, where they speak Flemish, that's to say Dutch, French, and German. And everybody gets along very easily.
Yeah.
No trouble at all.
In Switzerland, it's the same thing. Even in Switzerland, we have the famous German-French problem solved. We have been living peacefully together for the last 500 years at least. Why? Not because at the beginning at least we had a deep liking one for the other. It was exactly the same situation as it is now between Germany and France. It was simply because we had to fight. And if we did not fight together against the people in Austria who wanted to invade us at that time, well, we would die. I think that the situation is the same in Europe today. We are menaced by a great danger, an exterior danger. And I think that it should be possible for us to unite. And through that unity to gain at least, at last, a European Federation.
Philip, what role, excuse me, I want to ask just one question for myself.
Sure.
What role do you think the United States should have in moving toward European Union? Has she pressed it too hard already or not hard enough? What are your reactions, all of yours?
Can I answer to that?
All right, go ahead, Eric.
I think that the fear of what Europeans call the American imperialism is very important in the fact of uniting Europe. It's kind of cement. People are afraid that America comes and comes and comes and takes everything.
But, Eric, how can you speak of American imperialism? Because if America wants, excuse me, just one thing. If America wanted to be an imperialistic country over Europe, it would not try to unite Europe. Because when you are uniting a country, you are making it strong. And if you want to dominate a country, you must make it weak.
I didn't say that was my point. It's just what some people think. I don't
Fine.
agree
I
with
think
that.
it is very important that the United States, they have a right to say something about the United States of Europe. You see, in the First World War, Europe couldn't solve her problems alone. She needed the relief from the United States. In the Second World War, just in the same way. And so the United States have an interest in not being forced a third time to help Europe to solve her problems. By war, in a war or something.
I'd like to say that in Belgium, if some people are against American imperialism, as you say, it's due to the fact that more and more often we see American products in Belgium. Milk and cigarettes and chocolate and all kind of materials and jeans and so on. And we can't sell anything to the United States. They try to bring everything in Europe. That's a trouble.
Not a politic aggression, but more of an economic aggression, which
Business
we don't need at all.
Yes, that's something I think which should be changed, because in the long run, America will gain from a trade, even trade on the same basis with Europe, because by giving Europe the opportunity of sending products to America, America is giving to Europe dollars. And what will the Europeans do with those dollars if not buy from America? So in the long run, I think that it would be profitable for both countries and both sides.
Do you know which one of your 5 countries has gone furthest? Which one would you say toward European Union?
From the economic point of view, I think Italy. Italy now has no limitation on the importation of goods from other European countries. It's the only country in Europe who does this, and just to help economic union of Europe, which is a matter of life and death of Italian economy.
I wish we could get an idea from everybody, but we're going to have to sum up the discussion, and I want to be perfectly clear that each one of you has stated your viewpoint on the subject of the future of Europe in the best way you can. Eric, you started out by saying that European Union would never come about. You hold to that?
Yeah, I have a feeling in my heart, and I want to put it in words and in English words. That's very hard. Europe is a sick and beloved children of the world. Europe lives with its past. It doesn't live with its future. Europe is like a sick man who has a disease which has him dying slowly. And he knows that an operation could save him, but he's afraid of it. He doesn't want. He likes better to die slowly. From time to time, maybe dreams of grandeur come to Europe, but those nights go by very easily, and in the morning, Europe wakes up with those usual routine of wars, hate, slaughters, nationalism. Poor Europe.
Do you agree with what he said?
Well, you know, I know some friends in Italy who just think as Eric does. I think it is a consequence of the pessimism which war brings into youth, and it's something terrible. I personally think that in Europe we had some very hard time all the time in history, and we always found the strength to overcome those times. So now the great danger in Europe is to fight against skepticism, to have faith in the future.
And let's get a
young
word from
people must
Belgium.
have it.
Well, I have a completely personal point of view. For instance, I'm completely convinced that we can get along in Europe pretty easily. For instance, my father was 5 years in Germany as a prisoner during the war. And when I knew that I was supposed to come over to the United States and be with a German friend, I always wonder what will be my feelings. Shall I like him or dislike him? And I was surprised to see that he was a very good friend, just like all of you.
Can we
And I
hear a
didn't
word
have
from
anything
you?
against him.
Well,
no.
I think I agree with Eric on one point, is that we will die in Europe. But if we do not unite, and I think that if we remember that, then we'll be able to
we
unite.
know that. We know
You
that.
know it, we don't realize it, practically. And, well, we are here 5 students from Europe, and of those 5 students, well, we are 4 to 1 which think that it will be possible. If that represents the feeling in Europe, then I think that we can have some hope for
We
the
got a
future.
word
Oh
from
my
you, Gerhard?
gosh, no, but I'm not satisfied by this. You see, we all agree. But what are we going to do in reality?
That's the note, I'm sorry, that's the note we've got to leave it on. This is Helen Hyatt Waller saying good night for the New York Herald Tribune.